This is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, a weekly, proudly progressive show. We are your perpetuation of liberal entitlement.
Progressive talk entitlement. Remember, we changed it last week.
I don't keep up with these things.
You didn't get the memo?
I didn't get the memo.
We have a new cover for our TPS.
Good to know.
Intro.
Good to know. Still no skim milk liberals allowed, though? Did we keep that one?
Sure, why not?
All right. We have a big show.
It hasn't gone to committee yet.
We have a big show in store for you guys today. Thank you wherever you're checking us out. SoFlo Radio, We Act Radio, or maybe you've downloaded the podcast or checking out the YouTube video. Nicole Belle of Crooks and Liars coming up a little later. Josh Silver of Represent Us, something we think you'll all be interested in hearing about. And we're even going to play an interview we did with the one and only Senator Sherrod Brown.
Woohoo!
Yes, very excited to talk to him. But as usual, we like to talk about some news that you may have missed during the week or that we think needs a little bit more attention. And I wanted to start off with some good news and some bad news about Obamacare. We'll start with the good news, that California has revealed their health insurance exchange, the prices that people will actually pay to purchase health care under the Affordable Care Act. And the cost to a 40-year-old person who needs coverage could vary from $40 to $300 a month, depending on their income. I think there's a wide range of people's income, and young adults or people who are exceptionally healthy could pay nothing at all. So depending on how much you make and how much health care you are likely to need, you could get a very low rate on health care. $300, I consider still a lot of money, but...
Considering a point-of-service contract, if you go to an insurance company, you're not part of a group, anything like that, I need insurance. I know when I was purchasing that way, and this was, 10 years ago, because I was self-employed working.
Right.
It started at around $600 a month, and by the time I said, I can't afford this anymore, it was approaching $900 a month.
Yeah.
That's for me, and I'm not saying I'm unhealthy. I don't have a lot of health problems, and I was relatively young, late 20s, early 30s, and I can only imagine 10 years later what it is.
Right. And the thing is, as more states enact these exchanges and more people get enrolled, the pool becomes larger and prices go down. That's just the way health insurance can work.
That's the way insurance works.
Right.
It's risk. You spread risk.
And there's been a lot of talk about how expensive these plans would be. And these health insurance exchanges like California, Washington, Vermont, and other states that have started releasing information about them are proving to be a lot less expensive than some of the fearmongers on the right wanted us to believe.
But that's why they're getting in the way and not setting up the exchanges, because they actually want it to be really expensive so they can say, see, this bill sucked.
Exactly.
We told you so.
And that's also why they're refusing to expand Medicaid in a lot of these states, especially red states like Kansas, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Texas, Florida. Sensing a pattern here, these states refuse to expand Medicaid to cover people below the poverty line, and as Obamacare intended, up to 130% of poverty. Well, a new piece on the New York Times says that because of these states refusing to expand Medicaid coverage to those in need, there are going to be people that fall through the cracks of Obamacare. People who make enough money, who are past that 130% poverty level, will already get the tax credits for purchasing health insurance. They won't have the exchanges that some of the other people in these states benefit from, but they will still at least get a tax break and hopefully a lower rate to purchase insurance. People who make 30% or less of the poverty level, 30% of the poverty level, will be covered in many of these states because that's what their Medicaid cutoff is.
30%. Now, I was shocked.
Yes.
Well, I knew that was low, but I figured, okay, that's probably around, $10,000 a year? No.
No. Just to give you an example, the federal poverty level for one person, a single person, is about $11,000. For a family of four, a year. For a family of 4, it's $22,000. So you would have to make 30% of that in order to qualify for Medicaid in
or
states
less.
like
So less than $4,000 a year about as an individual.
Right. To qualify for Medicaid in states like Kansas.
So if you make $7,000 a year in Kansas, you are screwed.
Yes.
Currently.
You make too much to qualify for Medicaid. You do not get Medicaid. And you don't make enough, the 130% of the poverty level or above, to qualify for a tax credit. Not that you could afford to pay for health insurance up front to begin with anyway.
Right.
So,
and you're not paying taxes. I'm sorry, you're not paying federal taxes.
Right.
At that level. If you are, there's something really wrong.
Right. So
you are paying payroll.
There's a ton of people that, because these right-wing states refuse to participate in the Medicaid expansion, that are going to fall through the cracks. Bruce Leslie, he's the president of a child advocacy group called First Focus, explained it. He said that in states that do not expand Medicaid, some of the neediest people will not get coverage, but people who are just above the poverty line or are in the middle class can get subsidized coverage. They can get the tax credits.
Well, it used to be that the people that fell through the gaps actually were the people in between.
Right.
That there was the safety net for the very poor, that just above that are the group of people that really were in trouble, and then you had the rich who could just, buy whatever the heck they wanted. So it's kind of fixing that, but I'm wondering if before this, those people who are making more than 30% in Kansas weren't getting health care. So it's the same problem that isn't being fixed. This is not a new problem.
Right. And the solution, the fix, was expanding Medicaid to people up to 130% of the poverty level.
But thanks to our Supreme Court, who said you can't do that. You can't make a state do this.
Right. And then thanks to a lot of these right-wing legislatures and governors that say, we refuse to do anything to help Obama, even if it means that people in our state will have to suffer. And I have to commend Arizona Governor Jan Brewer, and that does not happen often, because she is refusing to work on any more legislation until her state expands Medicaid.
She's claiming she will veto any bill that comes to her desk until you get, in other words, nothing gets done until the expansion gets done.
Right.
The thing is that, this is going to be a great cost on us. No, it's not.
No.
The federal government's picking up 100% of the tab for the first 3 years, and after that it's 95% of the tab.
Right.
And I have to say that these people who are in between 30% and 130% of poverty, when they get sick and they go into hospitals, that cost to the state is going to be greater than that 5% of picking up the expansion of Medicaid.
Absolutely.
It is simply cutting off their nose to spite their face. They want to destroy Obama, but at the same time, they are harming their own citizens.
Right. And I have to say, I have never thought of Jan Brewer as the type to stand up for those in need. We have often disagreed with her, to put it nicely, on many of the things she has advocated for. But I have to commend her. When you spot somebody doing something good, no matter how much you dislike them, you should give them credit for that. And standing up for the people who need health care is a big deal.
We'll give her a little applause.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, don't go too far now. Yeah. Arizona, no corporate tax breaks, no more of your immigration bills, no nonsense until you get people health care. And I think that's a great deal. Now, Kansas and Florida and all of these other red states need to follow along and do the same thing. And speaking of right-wing freakouts, like the legislature going on in Arizona, there has been quite a freakout. And Shane, I know you loved this topic, over the Boy Scouts allowing gay scouts to join the ranks openly. The right-wingers are not too pleased with this. They have been tweeting and speaking and just issuing press releases about how awful it is that the Boy Scouts are allowing openly gay scouts. Rick Perry, he said he's saddened that BSA, Boy Scouts of America, bends to the whim of political correctness.
Wow,
digest that for a second.
Bends to the whim.
Yeah, of political correctness.
Right. Didn't Justice Scalia, he actually resigned as a scoutmaster?
Yes.
Oh, what will they ever do now?
Yes.
Can you imagine what a Nazi is about tying knots? I'm sorry. I'm totally getting in trouble for that statement, but I'm sorry. That guy's a little rigid for me.
Yes. And, his action on doing so definitely puts a bad taste in your mouth already, as his vote or his opinion on the upcoming gay marriage cases are still yet to be released. if he is willing to, it's hard to say this without sounding ridiculous, punish children by not participating in Boy Scouts, then, how far is he going to go to rule against gay marriage?
Sure. Yeah, it seems like he'd want to kind of hold off on that, maybe.
Yeah, maybe till after the vote.
He knows darn well how he rules, and we know how he'll rule.
Yeah.
Or his vote on this decision it'll be seen as his own particular inclinations or prejudices, not really what the Constitution says. Yeah. Despite the fact he says it's always about the Constitution.
His own particular brand of homophobia.
Yeah.
Some of these were really despicable. Eric Erickson said he will no longer enroll his son in Boy Scouts. Tony Perkins, because we all care what he says, Boy Scouts' decision is another casualty of moral compromise. Where do they get this nonsense?
Well, the thing is that the Boy Scouts will go on. They will be more inclusive. They will be actually a reflection of our society, of the young men in our society, and these people who are homophobes are not for equality. That's fine. Go do something else.
Yeah.
And what you have to say, I understand you're upset and all that, but go away. You can go be a hate monger in some other group.
Exactly. I think that they should all take an anti-bullying class, because it is one thing for you to discuss or debate or reject the views of another adult, regardless of how ridiculous the rest of the world views it. But it is another to essentially impart these views on children and make them feel worse about already dealing with a difficult situation. So, right-wing freak out over equality. Big surprise there. In good news, because I like to go back and forth here, 10 state legislatures have officially beaten NRA-sponsored or written bills. 10 states so far have overcome the power of the NRA and the lawmakers that support them.
So far.
Because
you remember the newest NRA president was brought in specifically because he's a litigator, and plans they do, their next goal is to go after each one of these state by state.
Yes.
Challenging their constitutionality under the, so there are a lot of court fights to be had.
Yes, I suspect that all 10 of these we will see in court very soon. Colorado passed a universal background check. California provided $24 million for confiscating of illegally owned guns. Shane, I know you had some legal reservations about that one. Georgia stopped legislation that would have allowed open carry in churches, courthouses, and college campuses, because what could go wrong there? Maryland, I think this one is really awesome. An assault weapons ban, restrictions on magazine clips, and a requirement that all gun purchasers get a license and submit to a fingerprint sample. The right wing's got to go nuts over that one.
Yeah, and the thing is there's all different levels and strata of regulation in the situation. Let the courts sort it out, and then you're going to have a template.
Yeah.
Every one of these court challenges, I understand everyone can get very emotional, and you want it to turn out a certain way or not a certain way. And courts are very fickle. We don't know what they're going to do. But when they do what they're going to do, you end up with a template, the way that you are able to then craft better legislation that does pass constitutional scrutiny.
Yeah.
So they're all learning events.
Yeah, these are all, slightly different bills. Rhode Island, Delaware, Wyoming, New York, Nevada, and my favorite one, I have to say, is Connecticut, which included a universal background check that actually includes the purchase of bullets as well as guns. I think that's where you regulate, because the Second Amendment doesn't say anything about bullets.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't. I mean, if you want to be strict constitutionalists, it doesn't say anything about bullets, because they didn't exist in the same form they are today at the time the Constitution was written. So I think that's the way we go about regulating.
We all know that the strict constructionists and the strict constitutionalists aren't really that.
No.
They just wanted to move just enough for their point of view. So what they'll argue is that arms, if you make them useless, therefore you have taken away the right to bear arms.
You can hold a gun. I would imagine you could hit somebody pretty hard with it. Just saying.
I'm going to thwap you on the head.
In some sad news, Chicago public school system has closed 50 schools, and they did it in a sly maneuver, closing all 50 schools with one vote without reading the names of the schools. So there was a lot of protesters, teachers union, parents.
You got to walk through that a little slower, because it took me a couple minutes after of reading this article to figure out what in the world they did.
Yeah. Parents, teachers, union representatives were at the proceedings waiting to, object to these votes as they went down. But instead of the secretary reading the name of each school and saying, this vote is to close this school, they did it in a much sneakier way. She simply read a list of numbers, which were the numbers of the resolution. Each resolution was, to close X school. She just read those numbers off in a list, and the school board president said, we're going to vote on all of them in one big group. And they closed them.
Right. So normally in a what we call a process, an open process, you say, okay, we're gonna discuss now closing school number 42.
Right.
People, I object. We'll have a discussion about it. Okay, all those in favor of closing school number 42, say aye. All those against, say nay. Instead, what they said, there wasn't anything. It just said, on the consideration of what are they called? Motion number 1, 2, da da da, and 1, 2, da da da, and 1, 2, da da da. The ayes are blah blah blah. The nays are blah blah blah. Done.
Yes.
And everyone said, what was that about?
And they didn't even do that. They didn't even make it that clear. He just said, she introduced the list of schools, and his exact quote here is, Madam Secretary, if there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call.
What?
It's a parliamentary procedure,
so
which
he just
is
cut
saying...
and pasted the roll call?
Yes.
Control V, control...
Pretty much. So, the whole process took less than 2 minutes. So less than 2 minutes to affect 27,000 kids and, countless teachers, staff members, supporting staff members, and parents are really upset about this. One of their biggest fears is that their kids may have to walk through gang territories now to get to their new schools. Not to mention, some of these schools they closed were special needs schools. So children who have, development disorders and autism, who have, had a relationship with their teachers and staff, are now going to be uprooted. And anybody who has experienced life with an autistic child or knows autistic children understands just how difficult that's going to be for them. So this is just shameful. And, I think that if they were going to do it, they should have at least had the courage to do it out in the open.
The thing is that in doing it that way, the backlash is going to be twofold, threefold, tenfold. Because they may have passed this, but people are going to be ticked, so.
I know I was when I read it. And back to some good news. President Obama looks like he's taking a stand against Keystone XL. The Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives passed legislation trying to undermine his approval of Keystone and just fast-track it. Go past the EPA, past the State Department, past the president, and say, we're going to go ahead and build this pipeline. And President Obama said, hang on a second. I will veto any legislation that comes to my desk that attempts to do so. Hopefully, that is a sign of the upcoming decision, and hopefully he will reject the pipeline as a whole.
Look for it as amendment to the immigration bill, FYI.
That's a scary prospect. We're going to talk about that immigration bill and much more a little bit later in the show. We have the president's speech, we have immigration, we have banking, we have so much to talk about.
And a special 6-hour edition of Talk.
We're never going to get through it all, but we're going to do our best. So you're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we're going to come back in just a few minutes with Nicole Belle of Crooks and Liars. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Whoa! Awesome! Totally awesome! All right!
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Okay, astronaut, you're up. You'll be meeting with Wish Kid Brandon.
Roger, Brandon.
His wish is to see a space shuttle launch.
All systems are go. We are clear for liftoff.
This year, more than 27,000 children will be diagnosed with a life-threatening medical condition.
And Cowboy,
Yes, ma'am.
you'll be meeting with Shayla at a dude ranch in San Antonio.
Let's saddle up.
Some will miss school, some will miss time with their family and friends.
Princess, are you here?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for rescuing me from that evil witch.
Juliana wishes for a princess-themed room makeover.
That sounds magical.
But with your help, the Make-A-Wish Foundation can lift their spirits and give them a special kind of hope.
Pirate,
Yar!
you're up for Isaac's wish.
Aye, aye, Captain.
The wishes of thousands of children are waiting to come true.
You can help make my wish happen. Visit wish.org today.
My name is Joe Thompson. I'm 29 years old and I have a career that I love as a systems analyst. Career. It still sounds cool to say that word. I never could have gotten on this path without a college degree. And if the college me were here, he'd tell you.
I never would have gotten to college without Big Brothers Big Sisters. I could have ended up anywhere, on the streets even. But college? Joe Thompson? Not likely. My big brother helped me out. He taught me I could do anything, at a time when a lot of people were saying just the opposite.
And to a 7-year-old, that means a lot. My big brother's name is Phil. And Phil is the reason that this 7-year-old grows up to be a systems analyst.
Whether you donate money or time, you're helping Big Brothers Big Sisters help a child. And that can last a lifetime. Start something today at bigbrothersbigsisters.org. Brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Brad Friedman, your friendly citizen investigative blogger, journalist, troublemaker, muckraker, and all-around swell fellow from bradblog.com. Join me for the Bradcast every Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. 1 hour of troublemaking and muckraking ripped from the pages of bradblog.com and sometimes from the dark recesses of my mind. We'll have investigative interviews with newsmakers, we'll call out the liars, frauds, and phonies, and we'll even give kudos to the good guys if we can find any. Stories you won't hear anywhere else. We'll report on politics, elections, election reform, mainstream corporate media failure, media reform, global warming denialism, and everything before, during, and after. Join me for the Bradcast every Wednesday, now a full hour, 3 to 4 p.m., right here on Pacifica Radio's KPFK, and coast to coast and around the globe on kpfk.org.
Hank Action News is proud to be sponsored by Healthcare for America Now. HCAN is a national coalition of more than 1,000 groups in 50 states, representing 30 million people. HCAN works to promote, defend, implement, and improve the Affordable Care Act at both the state and federal levels. They also try to protect Medicare and Medicaid, increase corporate accountability, and confront forces that seek to take away critical services. HCAN believes in creating jobs, not cutting programs people depend on. HCAN runs comprehensive issue campaigns that mobilize people at the grassroots and define the public debate. HCAN is fighting to protect, implement, and improve the new health care law through national and state-based legislative and regulatory campaigns built on grassroots action, public education, communications, policy analysis, and groundbreaking research. HCAN has become a respected voice and national leader on health care while continuing to focus on aggressive field activity. Support HCAN, Healthcare for America Now.
We have to be mindful of James Madison's warning that no nation could preserve its freedom in the midst of continual warfare.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We're going to be joined in just a few minutes by Nicole Belle of Crooks and Liars. We always love to get her take when it comes to, big issues like this. President Obama delivered a speech this week to the National Defense University, and he laid out his plan for so-called counter-terrorism. There has been a lot of talk on both sides before and after this speech, and from everywhere in the middle, about whether or not it was good, whether it went far enough, whether it went too far for some of those on the right.
Whether it was just a bunch of talk.
Right. And whether or not anything will actually come of it. And there is so much to digest there.
Yeah. The speech was just about an hour long.
Right.
Now, is in the middle of the day. I don't think you get away with an hour, probably in the evening, unfortunately, because the media wouldn't pick it up. It was a lengthy, meaty, speech. It was one of those ones you look back on and say, here is the doctrine for this point going forward in terms of the goals of the president.
Yeah. Of course, the big event that was notable during the speech was the protest of Medea Benjamin. She is
we're listening to it live. It sounds a lot like her.
Yeah, we were listening to it.
Like,
where do we know that
Like,
voice?
yeah. And also, it's something that how does she get into these? That's what I want to know. I'm sure it's like some kind of secret.
I don't know, but for anybody who doesn't know her, she's the co-founder of the anti-war group Code Pink, and she pretty much let the president have it. Now, I think he did give her more respect than previous presidents have done. Remember, Code Pink wasn't even allowed into any event from George Bush.
I think it was she who was taken out of a State of the Union and arrested because she wore a T-shirt.
I think it was Cindy
Sheehan. I'm sorry,
Cindy Sheehan.
But I'm sorry, I confused the two people. But that was how Bush treated people who protested him.
Right, and
You're under arrest.
The president actually let her speak. Tried to address some of her concerns.
It was already in the pre-written script.
It was already in the pre-written script. Her concerns were the same that many of us have: the closure of Guantanamo Bay, the civilian casualties, or even just the use entirely of drone strikes, torture, our loss of privacy rights. There is a lot there, and she went after him. She let him have it, and I think he did address some of those concerns. But my personal feeling was that the speech sounded a bit defensive.
It was defensive, and also, and I'm going to be repeating something else somebody else said, but I think it bears repeating. It was a quote. It was like, "Lord, grant me chastity, but just not yet."
Yes.
It was kind of these are the things I want to do, but not quite right now. Or these are my goals, but I don't have a proposal in front of me I'm going to present to Congress. Congress, we need to work on this authorization to use military force. But I'm not calling you to do it right now.
Right. He was very...
The wars must end is not saying end the war now. There's a really big difference.
Right. He was saying Congress needs to refine and then ultimately repeal the authorization for the use of military force. Why not just repeal it now?
The people who write his speeches are expert wordsmiths.
Yes.
They can craft a speech like no other. And he said exactly what he means. He didn't say this war will end at blah, blah, blah point, or I'm ending this war, or we must end this war now, or soon, or in a couple months. It was all wars must end. This war, like all others, must end. Well, when?
Right. And
I don't think I think even George Bush would have said, yeah, the war on terror will end. Now, granted, he would say 60 years from now, but President Obama didn't say it wouldn't be 60 years from now either. We're just reading into it that he's saying that.
Yes. And, I would have loved for him to say that the use of drone strikes would end or only be used in a real national security emergency. Yes, if you have, pertinent, verifiable, accurate information that says this person is about to, commit a terrorist act, I don't have a problem in that situation with the use of a drone. Other than that, no, I'm sorry. I think it's just creating more enemies than...
Yeah, he talks about more transparency, blah, 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 and more people. But who decides what is that information? When does it rise to that level? Who makes the determination on when it's reached that level?
Right. So,
and who oversees it? What kind of process is there? I understand that it has to be expedited in those situations.
Yeah.
You can't have a trial if it's going to happen in 5 minutes.
Yet
But the fact that you just trust us, we knew it was going to happen in 5 minutes, makes us all rightfully queasy.
Yeah, well, and yet he spoke in this speech about due process and that it's not, let me see here, that it's not feasible.
For the record, I do not believe it would be constitutional for the government to target and kill any U.S. citizen with a drone or with a shotgun without due process. Nor should any president deploy armed drones over U.S. soil.
I think that there's too many holes in that statement. I think, number one, we know that American citizens overseas have been killed without due process. There was no trial. There was no conviction. Number two, why should that only apply to American citizens? Right. Our Constitution does not give those rights only to American citizens. They give them to anybody who is within our borders, and I think that should apply to anybody who we're thinking we have the justification to kill. So, anyhow, these are all...
To end it on a lighter, on a because I know we've been bashing away here. This is better than what we would have gotten from our President Romney.
Yes.
And this is in the direction that while it's not there and it's not strong enough, at least I don't believe for either one of us, that even the mildest of movement towards the direction of ending the war and curtailing drone strikes and increasing privacy and closing Gitmo, those are the directions we want to move. So to sit here and beat him up over the fact he's not going fast enough or strong enough is counterproductive.
I agree.
That you are going in the right direction, and we will support you as long as you're going in the right direction. In fact, we'll push a little harder.
Yeah, I agree. And I really firmly believe, and this is something we're going to ask Nicole Belle about, that if we don't push for this now, as much as we can complain, if we do not support him in repealing the AUMF or in curtailing drone strikes, we might not have this opportunity again. So it's something we need to, as progressives, consider. And we're going to get Nicole Belle's opinion on it in just a few minutes coming up next. So you're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we'll be right back with Nicole Belle.
A beautiful place full of wonderful things just waiting to be experienced.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
We got no plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Fighter like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending.
This is your moment of clarity, coming to you today from Edinburgh, Scotland. So you've probably heard the people talking about global warming also mention how to boil a frog. The story goes that if you drop a frog into boiling water, he will immediately jump out because he'll think, holy God, it's hot in here. But if you put a frog in room temperature water and then slowly bring it to a boil, the frog won't jump out because he'll just think there's something wrong with the thermostat, and then he'll busy himself writing strongly worded letters to the hotel manager demanding a room with a more reasonable heating system. He'll keep doing that until he's a fried frog. Well, besides being an indictment of the intelligence of frogs, it's meant to make us ask ourselves, are we the frogs? And maybe one day aliens far, far away will use us as their example of gradual, horrible change being ignored simply because it's gradual. They'll go, how do you boil a human? Well, you slowly heat up their planet, and even though it's them causing it, they won't care enough to do anything about it. The other day, for the first time in 3 million years, our planet passed 400 parts per million for carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Many scientists believe 350 parts per million is the maximum level for a truly safe and stable planet. But we left that number in the dust. 350 can eat our wake. Scoreboard, scoreboard, overrated. But people don't stop to think about all the positives of ignoring climate change. In only a few years, there could be affordable beachside property in Ohio. Not to mention affordable beachside melanoma and halitosis. You used to live on farmland, now you live on a water park. How cool is that? No, but seriously, the reason there's so much supposed debate on climate change, and I don't mean debate among scientists, there's essentially no debate there, but the debate among others is because there are several types of people who either want global warming or don't mind it. First of all, you have the evangelicals who believe it's all in God's plan. Apparently God's plan includes killing tons of people with floods, droughts, and famine, and making the planet uninhabitable. And why would he do that? Gay people. Gay people. Always it up. There is nothing God hates more than a well-choreographed dance number. Seriously, gay people, why do you have to up the entire planet for everyone? Next, you have Alex Jones's people who think a conspiracy is behind global warming and scientists somehow manufactured the 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere so that the corporate elite could make money from carbon trading. Yes, that's right. The same people who make trillions of dollars from everything oil are now tricking you to stop you from using oil so they can make a much, much smaller amount of money. It's like me betting you $5 I won't tear up my own $20 bill. And then I do it, you give me the $5, and I go, sweet, look who's $5 richer. The truth is, Alex Jones needs a conspiracy once a week or else people turn off his fact-free program. So this week, what do you know? He has a conspiracy to tell you about. This is my only question for Alex Jones and his fans. When was the last time someone just actually died and wasn't assassinated? Never? Really? No one's ever died? Then there's one final group that love global warming, the corporate plutocrats, who don't mind global warming so much because A, they make insane amounts of money from us burning oil, and B, they want the oil underneath the Arctic. So they love that the Arctic is melting. They don't give a about a penguin. I know penguins don't live in the Arctic, but still, you gotta admit, they don't give a about a penguin. Note to self, purchase website, they don't give a about a penguin.com. I have to admit, it's nice to see the idiots and the douchebags coming together on something. They really have put their differences aside to go forward hand in opposition of what every scientist is saying. The truth is the debate is over, and we're passing one horrible milestone after another while we sit here arguing an inarguable debate. I would say the debate is moot, but I looked up the word moot in the dictionary, and the definition is, number one, arguable, as in this debate is moot, and number two, inarguable, as in this debate is moot. So it's high time we took the word moot out to the shed and beat the out of it. It's having an identity crisis, and we don't have time for our words to go off soul searching. So if you think about it, if you put a human in a boiling pot of water, he would jump out. If you put him in room temperature water and then bring it to a boil, he would probably still jump out. But if you put him in room temperature water with 3 other humans, and while the water slowly came to a boil, the 3 others told him reasons he should think that either the water is not getting hotter or that God wants it to get hotter, then the human will stand there until he dies a horrible death and takes the frogs with him. And that's been your moment of clarity, coming to you from Scotland today, land of the rainy, moldy castles. As you can tell, I'm touring, so go to leecamp.net/schedule to see if I'm going to be near you. And this music here at the end is the song We Want by my friends in the band Junkyard Empire. Thanks a lot.
Supporting human conditions, not free market propaganda and corrupt politicians. Cause they own my special interest groups that fund their campaign. That's why you hear the same old things they claim, but change never came. It's a dirty game maintained by reign for capital gain. But my people getting tired of the pain and the shame. We're not commodities or cars that turn the global
economy. You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We're speaking with Nicole Belle of Crooks and Liars. You can follow her on Twitter at Nicole Belle, B-E-L-L-E, and of course check out her blog over at crooksandliars.com. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today. We always love speaking with you.
I always love speaking with you, Danielle. I'm just so happy you asked me.
Oh, please, if we had our way, you'd be on every show. I wanted to get your take on the president's so-called counter-terrorism speech. And just, I'm on the fence on this one. I think there's a lot to commend him for, but I kind of felt like it was a little defensive. Do you have an overall take on what he said this week?
You know, what I felt like when I reviewed the transcripts was that there was stuff to really kind of frustrate every side of the aisle on this one. And it was to me, it was very interesting because it was almost as if he was thinking out his justifications as he was speaking. You know, I don't remember George Bush, for example, ever talking and kind of hemming and hawing and acknowledging it. He just said, nope, this is it. Whereas, I mean, it really felt like Obama's going through sort of an intellectual crisis in terms of trying to figure out exactly where he wants to go with this.
I think that's a really intuitive take, and maybe it's an intellectual crisis mixed with a moral crisis where he realizes the political situation, but perhaps something in him also knows that a lot of this is just wrong.
Right, and I think that's sort of where a lot of, frankly, liberals are. You know, it's hard for me to be okay with our drone program. It's really, really hard. Because But at the same time, I sort of know that there's never been a point at which we've obtained a technology and then dialed it back.
Well, yeah, and I can't recall ever learning of a president that was given such a large swath of power and then was the one calling to rein that in. And I think that is probably my biggest deal in this speech, is his asking Congress to repeal the authorization for use of military force.
Someday.
Yeah, someday. But I feel like if we don't push Obama to do this, this is something we might not get a chance again to do. Do you agree with that, disagree?
I completely agree. And that's sort of my frustration with the way Congress is going right now, because honestly, I don't care about the AP thing. The Benghazi thing is just trumped up stupidity. This is something Congress can do. Congress should do. They should absolutely use their controls to rein in the presidential powers.
Yes, especially considering he's calling on them to do it. And I don't see another president, I don't care what side of the aisle they're standing on, asking Congress to take away his or her power. My gut instinct says that this is a chance we might only get once, and we can hem and haw, and we can ask for the drone program to be ended. We can ask for Guantanamo to be closed. We can, ask for some of our privacy rights back. But if we don't support him in this fight because we're angry at those other issues, we might lose our chance.
Exactly. And frankly, the chances are, 50-50 that the next president is a Republican. And do you think he's going to ask for those powers to be lowered or strictured? He's not. He's going to actually look to expand them, because every president does that. Every president pushes up against the boundary of where his presidential powers lie and asks for more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you consider how broad the authorization for the use of military force is written, I'd almost lean towards the side of Obama hasn't imposed the upper boundaries of it as some other presidents would.
I think there's an argument to be made with the drone program that he has, because, when you go targeting American citizens and assassinating them without due process, I think that is going beyond.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but that was one statement that really stuck out for me. Shane, I know you just played it a minute ago, but maybe you can play it again. But he says he does not believe that it would be constitutional for government to target or kill a citizen without due process. But did Anwar al-Awlaki get due process? Did his son get due process? Did the two other American citizens that were killed? I don't remember a trial. Did we miss that, Nicole?
Not that I'm aware of. No, that's the part where I think Congress needs to come in, and that's for all of the stupid Benghazi hearings, this is what I want Darrell Issa to do. This is oversight.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this program. Let's talk about how we, exact due process on American citizens. And I know al-Awlaki, he. I don't know if he formally renounced his citizenship. I mean, he did say terrible things. He did say, I want every American dead, or I get that. That does not make you a criminal.
Right. And
even if you are a criminal, you get due process.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, it's really hard for me to wrap my brain around all the components in this speech. I'm thrilled that he's again calling on Congress to close Gitmo. I don't know whether I believe that would actually happen. I'm thrilled that he's at least putting some oversight on the drone program. But do you think that it will be any better handled in the hands of the military as opposed to the CIA?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah,
and I think you can see that by some of the stuff that's happened. The thing about just to back up to Gitmo.
Yeah.
The thing about Gitmo is, Medea Benjamin made a big splash by interrupting and saying you could close it down. Now, I don't think that that's actually true. I think, for all of the outrage that the Republicans are constantly drumming up against this president, for him to make a unilateral, choice to close Gitmo, I think would send people crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, the screams of dictatorship would be mind-blowing. But I don't think that he's necessarily framing this in the right way. You know, saying, please close Gitmo is not really effective. He's had that for 5 years. It's not working. If he comes back and says, are you telling me that our justice system cannot handle this, that we can house, you know, the most criminal people in the U.S. in our supermax prisons, and that's okay, but you can't handle this?
Yeah.
These guys can't be sent back to their country? Really? Are you telling me that we're that weak? And I think if he puts it in a shaming way, I think that he boxes the Republicans in a little more.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've heard that way of framing the discussion from other Democratic leaders, but I don't believe we've ever heard it from him. And I think this debate on whether or not he actually can close it now or can't close it now is unhelpful. I think we should be pushing Congress. We should be calling every senator, calling every representative.
Can't close Gitmo without the money.
Right.
In order to move them. He can close it tomorrow, essentially put them on the shores of Cuba and say, you're on your own, I guess technically. But everyone would go crazy about that. In order to close Gitmo, you have to put the people somewhere.
Right.
And Republicans have consistently said in any funding program, you can't use this to close Gitmo.
Right.
And the president cannot under the Constitution say, I'm going to spend money on this if Congress says you can't.
So
say he could just sign an executive order just is not true.
So where are they getting this talking point? I've heard it over and over. I know I heard it, as you referenced, Nicole, from Medea Benjamin. Do you have any idea where this argument comes from, that he can just close it now without Congress's approval?
I really don't. I think that we have gone past, and I kind of blame the Bush administration for this. We've gone past the point where people don't understand the balance of powers. Constitutionally, you know, the constitutional separation of powers, people just don't understand it, and they seem to think of the president as the CEO who can, you know, hire and fire at will and do all of the stuff that we can't. I mean, that's not what the president does. It's the same thing with the IRS scandal, where they're sitting there and like, oh, he's did this. He's not paying attention to some low-level flunky in Cleveland or Cincinnati. He just isn't. That's not what the president does. Yeah. And frankly, if the president doesn't have more important things for him to occupy his day with, then I would be worried.
That's a good point, and it's something I think we need to keep pushing so that people stay involved in politics, that it's not just when there's an election cycle. You know, it's not every 2 years or every 4 years, but we have to keep pushing Congress and letting them know that we support Obama on X issue, we disagree on Y, and no matter what happens, we're going to be fighting for what we believe in, and we're going to be putting blame where it actually belongs.
Right, and there is a calculation being made by the Republican Party at this time that Americans are too stupid to realize who's at fault.
Yes.
You know, and that gets reverberated in the media over and over and over again. So, you know, all of these ridiculous things, it's like President Obama has no, you know, he can't do that. What are you talking about?
Well, if only everybody was as smart as you, Nicole Belle. We're speaking with Nicole Belle. We're going to run to a quick break, and she's going to stick around with us for one more segment because she is that wonderful. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we'll be right back with even more Nicole Belle.
I've seen the show. It's excellent.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
This is Kimon Freeman, host of Speak Easy and co-founder of We Act Radio. Suicide is a very serious problem in today's challenging world, whether with our troops abroad or with everyday citizens within our own society. Before you take your life into your own hands, tie a knot at the end of your rope and call the suicide hotline toll-free at 1-855-320-LIFE. That's 1-855-320-LIFE. It may just be the most important call you ever make. You talk, we listen, and together we survive.
It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
Hi, I'm Tom Morello. Some call me the Night Watchman. In the case of Mumia Abu-Jamal at a crucial stage, please go to freemumia.com to find out more information about how you can help Mumia Abu-Jamal and other political prisoners. Night Watchman out.
Would you like to secure stable employment, affordable, high-quality child care, or an opportunity to serve your community through meaningful volunteer and internship experiences? If so, UPO is the place for you. Hello, I'm Andrea Thomas, Vice President of Administration and Chief of Staff for UPO. As the Community Action Agency for Washington, D.C., UPO has proudly served the residents of Washington for the past 50 years. Annually, we impact the lives of nearly 100,000 Washingtonians, 100,000 people advancing their education, securing employment, maintaining housing stability, and investing in their communities through volunteerism. Our vision is a Washington of thriving communities and self-sufficient residents. To learn more about our services and how you can partner with us or donate, visit us at www.upo.org. UPO, where we are uniting people with opportunities.
Hello, everybody. I'm David Schuster, your host of Take Action News. On our show, we talk government, politics, and what you can do to have an impact. We're nonpartisan, report like hell, and let the chips fall where they may. We feature segments like social media, activists of the week, and the latest news affecting our communities. So join us every Saturday and make a difference. Yes, you and I, we can do this. That's Take Action News on the air, online, and at your podcast convenience on iTunes each week on the We Act Radio Network.
The most important online radio station. It's easier than ever to listen to SoFlo. On the air and everywhere. On any computer, any mobile device, iPhone, iTouch, and anywhere you are, just hit SoFloRadio.com. Tell your friends about South Florida's radio network, SoFloRadio.com.
I don't want to see your face around here. The time isn't right for you. Said the time isn't right.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We are still speaking with Nicole Belle of Crooks and Liars. Be sure to follow her on Twitter at Nicole Belle, B-E-L-L-E, and check out her work at crooksandliars.com. Nicole, you know, I already see two sides of this shaping up. You see the left saying the speech isn't going far enough. The right is frothing at the mouth. Saxby Chambliss saying things like, this speech will be viewed by terrorists as a victory. Is this going to change anything, do you think? Is it more rhetoric, or will we see any actual results here?
You know, it's hard to say, Danielle, because we really have reached this level of absurdity in Washington that kind of renders it impotent. You know, I honestly felt sort of happy to hear Obama sort of acknowledging that, you know, what we've been doing in this war on terror is not really effective, and it's not really it shouldn't be the way it is, the new normal for, you know, the rest of the time. So I get this sense that he's kind of going, yeah, you know what, we shouldn't be there anymore. This isn't helping our cause. But, you know, we have a level of ridiculousness with Republicans that just basically paralyzes everything that happens in Washington. You know, there's no one on this planet who thinks that with any sort of intellectual honesty that what we've done in Afghanistan and Iraq has made us any safer.
Or has made their country any better.
Right. So, you know, if this is how we prosecute the war on terror, if this is how we get people to not commit acts of terror against us, we have failed miserably.
Yes. I think he kind of referenced what you're talking about in a statement. Shane, this is the clip about the AUMF, about closing, he kind of summarizing his whole speech, talking about the repeal of AUMF and the end of this systematic war on terror.
But in the years to come, not every collection of thugs that labels themselves Al-Qaeda will pose a credible threat to the United States. Unless we discipline our thinking, our definitions, our actions, we may be drawn into more wars we don't need to fight.
Iran.
Or continue to grant presidents unbound powers more suited for traditional armed conflicts between nation states. So I look forward to engaging Congress and the American people in efforts to refine and ultimately repeal the AUMF's mandate. And I will not sign laws designed to expand this mandate further.
Iran. Syria.
Our systematic effort to dismantle terrorist organizations must continue. But this war, like all wars, must end. That's what history advises. That's what our democracy demands.
Our democracy demands. Besides the fact that we can't fight an ideology, that we can't fight terrorism as an idea, this pursuit of Al-Qaeda has to come to an end. I mean, those words give me hope that at least he's looking in the right direction, and at least the blame may finally rest with Congress where it belongs. Any thoughts on that, Nicole?
Well, from your mouth to God's ears, yeah. I would love for that to happen, and I would love for President Obama to frame it in that way, that we cannot fight an ideology. To put it in those stark terms, I think is what needs to happen, because honestly, I think most Americans are with him on that. I think if you look at the polling, most Americans understand you can fight terrorists, but you cannot fight terror.
Right.
And so, yeah, if you find out about cells, if you find out about, through our intelligence works, about planned courses of action, absolutely deal with them. I'm not entirely comfortable with the drone strike aspect of that.
I agree.
But you know what? I would, as heartless as this sounds, I would rather have the drone strikes than to have 40,000 service members stationed in the Middle East subjecting themselves to being killed.
Yeah, and then subjecting themselves to everything that our Veterans Administration is really not doing well when they get home. So, it's not even any longer the potential danger they face and the potential harm from actual war or actual occupation, as some people would call it. Now it's also that long-term effect of what those men and women go through when they get home. I don't want more of our citizens, our brothers and sisters, going through that. I want the people who've already been through it to get enough help and not add more to the problem.
Right. And that's, that's the thing. This is, forgive me for sounding incredibly narcissistic, but I'm just going to do this as an example. I used to be the managing editor of Crooks and Liars, and that meant 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, combing through news, combing through these stories, looking at what was going on, how things were being framed, and I ended up having to step down as a managing editor because my doctor was like, you are killing yourself. Your heart is literally not beating on a regular basis anymore. I developed a heart murmur from being so stressed out all the time. I'm sitting at a computer in my nice, comfy, suburban house, just reading the news. And it literally started to kill me. What are we doing to these service members who are doing 3, 4, 5 tours of duty in a foreign land with violence all around them, where they literally, and it's not even just outside, in the militarized zones. They don't even know if they're not going to get electrocuted taking a shower.
That's a good point. Well, hopefully we can stand with the president enough to wind some of this down and keep pushing for him to go further and for Congress to start reining in these other programs. But I appreciate you joining us, Nicole, and giving us your take, because it really means a lot to us, and I really appreciate the intelligent way you go over speeches like these and situations like this.
Well, thank you, Danielle. I love talking to you. I didn't get to talk to Shane very much, but
I was just busy here, just mentioning countries out loud: Syria, Iran.
I know. That was great.
Mr. Subliminal over
You're
here.
Absolutely right, Shane. That's what he's saying is Republicans, don't think that we're going to go into Iran.
Yeah.
Don't you dare think we're going to go to Syria. And I love that. That gives me some hope.
Yeah, and we have to hold on to that now and keep fighting for what else we can do. Nicole, Belle, thank you so much for taking time with us. We absolutely love you, and hopefully you will join us again soon.
I'll be happy to.
Sounds good. Nicole Belle, one of our favorite people in the whole wide world of Crooks and Liars. All the links will be up with the blog post after the show, as are often for Nicole Belle. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we'll be back with more, so stick around.
It's Tuesday, May 21, 2013.
There is